The Stateside Soccer Show is now covering Ted Lasso.
If that's a joke, I love it. If not, I cannot wait to unpack that with you.
That's no joke. The Stateside Soccer Show now presents Believe Cast. We aren't talking about faith or ghosts.
Do you believe in ghosts, Ted?
I do. But more importantly, I think they need to believe in themselves.
We are talking Ted Lasso episode recaps. So sit back, get ready for us to discuss all the tea.
You know, I always figured that tea was just going to taste like hot brown water. And you know what? I was right. Yeah, it's horrible.
Hello and welcome to Believe Cast, presented by the Stateside Soccer Show. My name is Jordan Wiegand, and I'm going to introduce our co-host here. He's a guy who wanted 4,400 some miles of space from me. That is why he's recording this in Florida. It's Logan Stump.
I'm trying to do the math here. Is that right? No, that's 100%
I think it's only 1,000 miles.
I think so, something like that. Yeah. For those that don't know, Jordan is in Baltimore area, I guess. Is how you would describe that. And I'm
not giving my information. Yes.
Right.
Let's go.
I am in the Orlando area. Jordan's direct address is. So if you want to mail him or send him.
Mail me at 123 Baltimore Avenue. Yeah. We are talking episode 5 of Ted Lasso, entitled Tan Lines. It's written by Brett Goldstein. If you're not familiar with him, he is the one that plays Roy Kent. Directed by Elliot Hegarty. And the synopsis is, with his wife and son visiting from America, Ted makes drastic changes to the lineup during a critical match. So I guess give me your thoughts on episode 5. You know, I think you mentioned this yesterday, but this past week we watched The Last of Us episode 3, total cry fest, and then we go right into this episode to recap, which is again total cry fest at the last scene here. But your thoughts on Tan Lines?
Yeah, I was watching episode 3 of Last of Us yesterday and then turned in right into this one, as you said. And I was like, damn, we really did not, I did not plan this very well. I was not ready for two, soul crushing episodes as these two are, for different reasons, but all centered around love. And I'll tell you what, this episode, Jordan, is one that I think Jason Sudeikis, out of all the episodes that we're going to cover, I think this is probably one of his most brilliant as far as his acting. And you could probably speak more to this. I don't really know when this was. Like you said, that it's kind of around his divorce. I don't know how close this would have actually been to his actual divorce, but I think he channels a lot of that, like a lot of that feeling. And my goodness, is this a deep episode? I mean, I think this was one of those episodes where I'm like, man, this is the first 4 episodes is like, okay, this is deeper than soccer. This one was like, this is going to be like one of those shows that we look back and go, this is one of the best shows we've ever watched.
And thank you for reminding me. I totally forgot to say that this aired on August 28th of 2020 on Apple TV Plus. Sudeikis, he stopped his relationship with Olivia Wilde in 2020. Not really sure when that ended. At this point he was filming, but usually he was filming in 2019. Okay, so they ended their relationship in November of 2020. So about a few months before this ended, but usually at that point there's already some sort of sign, right, that things are not going well, and maybe that he was working through that. I don't know. But yeah, so that's Ted Lasso episode 5, and we're not going to dive any more into it. So thank you all for listening. I'm just kidding.
That was fun. Yeah, I really did enjoy that.
We're going to get into it. We're going to get into it here. But the episode starts off, which I would say is one of my favorite gags here, which is Higgins' family dropping him off. And all the kids chilling in the back seat as if it's a clown car, and they're all going to come piling out. It's 4 kids in the back of this small car. Some of the kids are older and just look really squeezed in back there. But I thought that was a really great visual. And they kind of mentioned that like they're able to get the second car fixed or whatever, due to Higgins, I guess, having his job. It's one of those, look, I'm not sure how familiar you are with Parks and Recreation, but there's a character named Jerry, also Terry and Larry, whatever they call him at that certain point. But Jerry is the butt of a lot of jokes, like Higgins. But Jerry's got a smoking hot wife and a beautiful daughter and a perfect family life. And it is just hysterical. And that's how I kind of get with Higgins here. Of Higgins is kind of like the butt of Rebecca's jokes right now, but he has a very healthy, happy home life, which is good. I like when those characters have something going for them and they're not just completely miserable.
Yeah, I like this part. This is when he gets out of the car and he's talking to his wife, and the wife knows. Obviously, it goes home, like it carries home. And it was just last episode, I think. I can't remember what episode it is now. But it was the episode when Higgins is still at home, and Rebecca calls him and goes, "Where are you, Higgins? Like, I need to talk to you." And he comes running out from his house, and he's like, "I got to get to work." But I think you're right. I think it speaks to like how I wouldn't say perfect, but how great his home life is, and I really do enjoy that aspect of it. And this is when his wife tells him that he hopes that Rebecca gets heart disease.
Yes.
Like, yeah, I guess. So I think it's a lot of fun.
We kind of jump right from that to Ted talking to Rebecca. We learn about the whole Oklahoma thing, right? That, to be honest, they have this code word that if they say Oklahoma to each other, Ted and his wife, then they have to be honest with each other. And this will come up later on in the episode, of course. But Ted uses it as a gag here, right? When Rebecca says something to kind of please them, and he says Oklahoma, and she's like, no, like no. And then they move on from there. What, she need the charger?
Yeah, she was making a surprise visit.
Yeah. But yeah, so we have Ted talking to Rebecca. This is where we learn about the Oklahoma thing. She's kind of regretting that she's opened up to him about Rupert, because she's like, are you just sharing all of this stuff with me because of that? And he's like, yeah. He's telling her a little bit of a hint here that they have been having a little bit of problems. We kind of got that vibe from episode 1, of course, right? Episode 1, when she gets the phone from her kid, and he's gonna say, well, one, he tries to say I love you, and she says she can't say it back. And then we also get her kind of getting on his case about calling, I guess. He's like, I'm giving you that space. So we kind of already get some of this stuff set up in the first episode, and then in this episode we kind of get clarification of that. Later on in this episode, we're going to get, Nate asking, why'd you come out here if you thought your marriage was in trouble? And he straight up says that, my wife wanted space, so I gave her, 4,400 some miles of space. So we get all that confirmation of it here. But in this opening, right before we go to the credits, Ted is telling Rebecca that things are not so great between them right now.
Yeah, it just shows like how open he is, but also, I don't know, like he's kind of reserved in ways that you'll kind of see as the show progresses. But I like the fact that he uses Oklahoma on Rebecca, and she's just like, I really just don't like talking to you in these kind of situations. It's a lot of fun, but it's a good moment. I think it shows too, like Rebecca still kind of likes to listen to Ted talk sometimes. I think she likes the company of Ted, even though she might not like him every morning. It does seem like she doesn't necessarily hate the discussions. It's just that, I think it's just because of the situation at hand. I think she has a hard time talking to him.
Yeah, I think she's still getting used to it. Right. And she still, we saw that wall break down a little bit in episode 5 with Ted. And I think, not episode 5, episode 4. But I think in episode 3, we kind of get the wall coming down a little bit for Keely. Right. So it's been a slow process here as she is starting to wear the wall down. But I feel like sometimes with her, with what she's saying to Ted here is almost like fake. When she's like, "Oh, are you opening up to me because I opened up to you?" And she's kind of like giving him crap for it. I think she's actually probably appreciative on the inside of it, right? But it's almost like she needs this exterior of "I'm a hard ass" type thing, is kind of how I perceive it. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe we can get Hannah on and she can tell us what she read from that scene.
Yeah, so Hannah, if you're listening.
We go to the credits. We come back from the credits, and Keely is going to Jamie's house, and she learns that he has moved on pretty quick. Now, she says here, 24 hours or so since they had broken up, less than 24 hours. So this is like the next day from the auction. So we're picking up almost immediately after here. And she, again, Jamie kind of has this healthy attitude, right? When she says, she says, "Thank you. I usually wonder when I break up with somebody if I made the right move, but with you, I'm thinking you're saving me the trouble of that because you're already doing this." And he says, "You're welcome." And she's like, "What?" And he said, "Well, if I made you happy and that's making you good, then you're welcome," which is, again, another one of those things where he's tripped up into something that's a very healthy mindset, but he's still not very healthy mentally, as we're going to get to the game when he's playing in the game. But yeah, Keely comes in, meets the new girl who is in love with Keely, by the way, who has idolized her. I couldn't really, I don't think this is the same person that bid on him, because the person that bid on him is new Rebecca, right? Because Rupert goes over to the girl that bid on Jamie, and she looks the same as new Rebecca. So I don't think this is the same girl, but I cannot confirm or deny, I guess.
I like that Jamie, and he's so unapologetic, and he also is so "You're welcome. See, I made this a lot easier for you to break up with me. I'm glad I could do this service for you." And
yeah,
he just doesn't. He's so stupid that he just doesn't get that she's not really being serious. She's actually being a little sarcastic in a way, because I'm sure she's had feelings, but says she didn't. She's kind of that kind of character. But again, I guess it would be easier to kind of move on if you saw them moving on too. So that's time.
Hey, fun thing here. I'm learning here. Okay, Keely Hazel is the person that plays Bex in season 1, and that's Rupert's new girlfriend. Okay, she was also in Horrible Bosses 2 with Jason Sudeikis. So there's a cool link right there. But Keely Hazel, she's a British model and actress, but that's who plays Bex. I couldn't see that. I don't think this is the same girl as who was in there with Keely, but so just getting clarification on that. We go to training, and Jamie's not passing it to Sam as he's wide open. We also get Ted interrupting. He blocks the shot, and Jamie's like, "That was going in." He's like, "We'll never know." I like that so much there. But he says, that's kind of the almost like the Luis Suarez move, right? From the World Cup in 2010, when he uses his hands to stop the goal, and it was for sure going in. But, it's kind of those, you'll never know. It never actually hit the back of the net. And we get some bit of information here about Ted. He leaves peanut butter jar open on his counter. Roy approves of this, by the way, but my wife did not. My wife did not approve of this. She said, "Ooh," very, very audibly.
It's like a bachelor moment. It's like what guys would do. I totally do it. I would have no issue. I literally just ate a spoonful of peanut butter. Not like I left it out on the counter. But I love that Roy says, "That's a great idea. Like, that's an effing great idea. I love that. And they just kind of all look at him like, wow, he's a genius. And Beard, I think, agrees with it too. And they're like, wow, Ted's...
Well, what I like about it is the way Ted phrases it. Like, what? It's like a open jar of peanut butter that I dip my finger into, and everybody's like, what? He's like, oh yeah, it makes more sense if I tell you that that's what I do, right? Like, you guys don't know I do that already, so I have to stop and I have to clarify that for you. But yeah, some of them I think make some noises like, ugh, and then you have Roy with that's an effing brilliant idea. Roy starting to really come around here. Roy is. This is when Ted's kid and wife arrives, and he sprints over. And my favorite line of the episode, I think, is when he gets over there and he says, kind of thought you'd meet me halfway, but that's okay.
Yeah, because doesn't Nate say like something like, does he realize that's a long run?
Yeah. Well, yeah, so in his mind, he thought for sure we're going to start running, and they're going to run over to me. You see it in movies all the time, right? Where they're all running to see each other. I think Joy and I had sort of something like that when we first saw each other from program, where you're like, oh my God, and you start running into each other.
Yep.
But yeah, not the case here. Is his wife and kid just sit there. I feel so bad for Ted. But Ted's nice. He's like, oh yeah, that's fine. What are their names? I can't find it anywhere.
The wife's name is Michelle, and the son's name is Henry.
Yes. All right. Yep. Michelle and Henry. Thank you. So we go from that to Higgins tracking down Rebecca and saying, tickets won't be sold out for the next game. Of course not. We've lost 4 games in a row and in a relegation battle. So there's your fun tidbit. We are officially now in a relegation battle. They've lost 4 games in a row. Rebecca loves it, right? She's still at this point. You're wondering, okay, they're breaking down her walls a bit. Is she still wanting to get back at Rupert with this club? Is she still hoping Ted fails? The answer, yes. She's still very much on board with this plan. And I think it's good that they state that here, because I remember my first time watching, I was always thinking, oh, he's kind of wearing her down. And then you hear that and you're like, okay, no, she's still thinking that, Now, of course, we saw in the last episode, she did kind of feel for Ted in moments, and she appreciated that he saw through Rupert. But in her mind, this is still all endgame, right? Of getting back at Rupert. She hasn't really sat and thought how much it's going to affect Ted if this is successful. We'll see if that continues throughout the journey. Like we said before, this is a spoiler-free podcast. So we'll see if that trend continues, but I'm glad that each episode so far, they kind of hit that moment of, let's reestablish Rebecca. This is her plan. This is what she's hoping for, to kind of give people, yes, this is still her plan.
Yeah, they do that brilliantly in this show. I feel it's just like subtle. Here's where we are. Here's the situation. Rebecca's plan is going as planned, and it comes up as just normal conversation because it's like, this would normally happen. Where
we're not selling tickets.
Yeah,
right. That's Higgins' job.
Yeah,
this is, he's the director of football. He's going to know how many tickets are sold. He's going to know how that affects the team. This means more in soccer, for people that are not familiar, than in any other sport. One, because English football handles it differently. You get a lot more traveling fans. You get, just a lot more, like, how a home field advantage can really factor in world football compared to some other sports. And that's because sometimes they're just willing the players to play. They're chanting constantly. It's not like when you go to a football NFL game and the announcer's like, it's 3rd down. Like, they don't need that prompting. They are aware of the situation. They're constantly pushing the players. And in this case, they're constantly yelling wanker. We'll get there. But Jamie gets his beer sponsor photo op here. He wants his tattoo in the pic, right? He wants his Chinese tattoo. He's very basic guy who tries to act deep. And then we get the total switch with the, you've seen a unicorn. Have you seen a brunicorn? And him holding the beer as the unicorn horn. We get him talking about his brewbie, like his baby. Just Jamie going unhinged and Keely like, stick to the script.
I can't imagine the people that are like the advertising, the photo shoot and the press that are there like, what is happening? And you know that people are there from that company going, okay, that's not really how we had that intended for, but I guess you can be the brunicorn. That was my favorite part, was the brunicorn and he had it on his... I love it. I had no idea where he was going with it, and I've seen it 3 times through. I was like, I'd forgotten about that every single time, and it still gets me every single time. I think it's hilarious.
And then, Rebecca brings Keely aside and says, you're not back together with him, right? And she's like, no, I set this up. I'm going to get the credit for this. I'm not just going to drop this. And Rebecca says, would you like to do this kind of more full time? We have other players that have other opportunities that you can maybe find for them. And she's like, Keely says, I don't want you to give me a job just because I consoled you in the bathroom or talked to you in the bathroom the other day. And, Rebecca says, why not? Men give each other jobs in the bathroom all the time. And Keely takes this the funny way, she laughs and she's like, oh yeah, they do. And Rebecca's like, no, like jobs. And Keely's like, what? Not hand jobs, blow jobs, foot jobs. And we get the question, is it foot job or feet jobs? The question that's a good question. I feel like you would go with foot because you go with hand, but like Keely says, they're using both feet. So you usually only use one hand, right? So there's a deep question from Keely and Rebecca, but I do like that we're kind of finding other ways to bring Keely into this universe instead of she's just there to pick up Jamie. Oh, she's just there to visit Jamie. We're finding more ways for her to get tied into Richmond.
Yeah, I think that first they want you to believe that Keely's going to be that shallow kind of girl that Jamie is, because that's the only thing that Jamie could actually attract. And she does have to be shallow for Jamie. Like she has to, in layman's terms, she dumbs it down for everything that she does with Jamie, for Jamie, to Jamie, like everything that she does. And I think my favorite part of this whole thing too, though, was right after that, Rebecca goes, what is it that you even do? And Keely goes, I'm famous for almost being famous, is basically how she explains that. And I think that's funny just because I think there's a lot of people in our world that they're famous for almost being famous. And we watch them on reality TV shows. We watch them for like, why are you famous? Well, I'm famous because I'm famous. That's really it. Like, there's not much to that. I don't really do anything. I just became famous because of who I am and what I look like. So I think it's really funny. It kind of shows a deeper element to Keely, and I think you're starting to really see. And I think you see it in episode 1 when she has the conversations with Ted. It's like a flip, or a switch flips, and it's like, okay, I can be deep Keely as well. And now she is deep Keely, and then as she's leaving this, I think it's one of my favorite. I think it's I don't know if it's right now, but it's coming up when she has the interaction with Roy, and it's one of my favorite interactions ever.
It's pretty much right after this. We cut from this to Ted taking his wife and kid to the pub where Henry sticks one of the supporters with the dart. So he gives up pretty quick here. So I always think this is funny, when Ted walks in and he introduces the 3 bar, the 3 pub crawlers, right, to his wife, and they're like giving him hell, and then as soon as they introduce, oh, Miss Lasso, nice to meet you. Like, that part is great. It shows how like they can turn it on and off just to be like,
sports fans.
Okay, we're not upset with Miss Lasso. We're upset with your husband. So we're going to, oh, nice to meet you. We're going to be respectful. But Ted's a wanker, right? It's pretty much how they go about it here. But then we jump back over to Jamie trying to invite Keely over. He says, why don't we, study this stuff or, hang out naked? And she's like, no. Roy only hears the no. Roy doesn't know that they're broken up at this point. He says that's pretty smart. Like, I wouldn't want to spend time with him. So the fact that you choose to date him is, insane. She's like, oh, we actually broke up. And he's like, I didn't know that. She mentions, do I have to tell you everything? Right. And do I need to ask your permission? All this kind of stuff. And she goes on this, tangent where she's going to text him and ask if it's okay if she pees, right? Or, whatever it was there. But some sparks here between Roy and Keely. I feel like we've always been kind of getting it. The first two, it seemed like maybe they were thinking Ted and Keely, and maybe just the sparks between the actors for Roy and Keely have made them pivot, or maybe this was always the plan. But the more that they see each other, the more that they talk to each other, the more you start to really like these two characters together.
Yeah, I think it speaks just to that. I think at first they were thinking, okay, let's get Ted and Keely together. But I think because Jason, what's the girl's name? I always forget her. Juno, right?
Juno Temple.
Yeah. Juno and Jason had good chemistry, but very much like I think Ted kind of looks out for her and like is kind of a guardian figure to her. Whereas I think Brett's chemistry with Juno is so spectacular. And it is interesting because of how reserved Brett is. And we could talk about that for days, like how reserved Brett is and how different Roy is from the actual person that plays him. But I think it is interesting just because this is something I never saw coming until about this episode. I think when I was first watching it through, I thought like it was just going to be like kind of like this weird tension. But then I was like, wow, they're actually turning this into something. I think it all speaks to Roy becoming a little bit softer and softer as we get to know the actual Roy Kent. So I think that's exciting. And I think Keely brings a lot of that out of Roy because Roy just wants to be the grunt and just kind of be the guy that's just a manly man. I think my favorite part about the whole interaction is when she does ask him to go to the bathroom through text as she's walking down the hallway. He turns and he mumbles, he goes, yeah, I guess.
Yeah.
I guess you can.
Yes, so we got some good stuff there with Roy and Keely. We kind of then go to Ted, right, building the Legos with his kid and wife. This is, playing to a very beautiful song, by the way, that is also in Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 1 or 2, I think. But it is Sam Cooke, Bring It On Home to Me. All right. Guardians Volume 2. That's right. Okay. Great song, by the way. You get the slow-mo. And the way I interpret this is his last happy moment as a family together. This is probably also when he maybe makes that decision that he is going to let her go. Because later on, he's going to see her cry. So maybe this will just be the lasting memory that he has of them being all together, happy, building this Lego together. So right after this is when he sees his wife crying. He comes in and, she's wiping tears away and he's, they have the conversation about that. But just something that really stood out to me is the song choice, the slow-mo, and just how it seems to be like this, maybe one part of just Ted knowing, soak it in here, right? Like soak in this moment because it's not going to last much longer.
Yeah, I saw it somewhat that way, and also maybe somewhat of like maybe it was Ted thinking like this is the perfect moment. This is what we were as a family. This is exciting. True. But I think he comes back and he sees her crying. He's like, after all of that, after all of the fun that we had, and probably one of his best lines too, when they're building the double decker and the wife goes, "Don't you want to go ride one, Henry, rather than build it?" And Ted goes, "That's more of like a Field of Dreams kind of thing where you build it and then you can go do it."
Yes,
I love that moment, but it's like after that, like you said, it's that beautiful montage of like it's just a bunch of like cut scenes of them smiling and laughing and wrestling with Henry. It's like that ideal quintessential family scene where you're like, man, this family's having a lot of fun. They're happy. They're smiling. There's no tears. It's just the family being family. They're finally getting back to kind of healing a little bit. And then you have that moment where he goes out to get breakfast for Henry and like the scones. And he walks back in and she's staring out the window crying. And he's like, hey, what's wrong? Like, what's going on? Like, you can kind of see he's startled. But then again, Jordan, like you said, I think you can also see in his face, like, he knew this was coming. I think he felt the inevitable was coming. Like, as much as you can have a good moment, and a lot of times it does happen, like you have that one last good moment before you break things off with somebody in any kind of relationship. You have like that one moment, and then it's kind of like the tears come, the anger comes, you have the big split, or you have the split. It might not be emotionally, but it just, I think at that time, everybody just kind of like, for the best of everything, let's just call it.
Yeah, that's this moment, Logan. This is our last episode. All right, we're going our different ways.
Yeah, this will be sad. Yep, this was fun, Jordan. I really did. I mean, the next episode will be a lot of us just kind of just getting rid of our emotions and I guess cherishing what we had.
Yeah. Ted is going to meet with Nate and Beard. Higgins is going to come into this too. Not going to spoil anything here, but we're going to get used to these four again. Talking about this type of stuff. This is where Nate asks about coming here if they're worried about marriage. He learned, he talks about the space, and Ted asks Higgins, and he talks about 5 boys, a cat that's on its last legs, and that yes, they've had problems, but this is what I think sticks out to Ted, and maybe this is actually where he makes his decision. Right, is if you're with the right person, even the bad times are not so bad. And I think he sees that Michelle is just not vibing with that, right? She's not having that type of, like bad times are fun with you, Ted. She sent him all the way over to England because he was too optimistic, right? That's kind of Ted's word, that the more he was around her, the more miserable she was. And I think this is Ted realizing, okay, I can't do this anymore to her, Another fun part is talking about the difference between 911 and 999 and how Ted points out something that is obvious with 999, is it could be a lot of butt dials because it's just the same 3 the same 3 numbers over and over again compared to 911 over here, which I just thought it was funny how he even worried about that. And then how he said, ambulances were going back and forth.
But then Higgins and Nate are quick to go, yeah, no, that makes sense. Like, now that makes sense, because there are a lot of those instances. Jordan, this is where I feel like really, and you've kind of alluded to it, I won't want to give away anything. There's an episode coming up that it clearly will give something. If you want to look up Jordan, I'll tell you after the show, but there's an episode coming up that's got a certain title that not many people know if you're watching it, but there is an episode coming up but for that being said, I think this is where we really start to see, I think, the brilliance of Higgins, because we start the episode with him. He's in there with Rebecca talking about the tickets. He's talking about, then he's jumping in with these guys down in the locker room. You're starting to see them. I think the writers start to figure out, man, this could actually be something. This Higgins character could be something. He's self-deprecating. He's hilarious. He's got great timing. And I think he's kind of like that honest truth that Nate won't say yet. Higgins will say it. Higgins doesn't have a problem saying, like, man, this is really something. So yeah, I really like this moment. And I do love the butt dial thing, just because it's like, and every time they pan to Beard and he nods, I laugh. It doesn't matter what's happening. He just gives the like subtle, like, like,
yeah,
exactly.
All right. Let's go ahead and move on from this scene to the game. The game happens. Well, before the game, Jamie's talking about, like, you can be all rah, 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 but I'm going to focus on me. Ted gets stern here, by the way, and he's about to yell at him when Henry comes in and asks for Jamie Tart to sign his shirt. I also like when we hear the Jamie Tart chant, Jamie Tart, do, off Baby Shark, and Ted's like, as catchy as that is, like, and he's about to tell him off. Well, Richmond go down 2-0 in 6 minutes. First 6 minutes of the game. It looks like by the 28th minute, it's 2-1. And then I think by the end of like the 38th minute, it's supposed to be 2-2, but yet they kind of go into halftime a minute later. It's kind of fuzzy with how they're cutting the time here. But the second goal comes from a foul where Sam gets injured. Jamie won't even check on him. And Roy starts fighting with Jamie. We get some great banter from Arlo and whoever's co-commentating. I forget who it is. But when, Arlo says, did you ever fight a teammate? He's like, no, as much as I wanted to. Kind of jealous, honestly. Like, that part just makes me laugh so much. But yeah, so we have 2-2. Jamie scores both goals and keeps pointing at the back of his shirt where his last name is, shouting, me. Ted thinks he's saying me. He's confused. But Nate clarifies he's saying me. Here's what I like about it that I just picked up this time. Okay. When he goes to make the sub, Jamie points at himself and says, me? With a question mark. So it's kind of like twisting that me again, but this time of, wait, me? I'm the one coming out? And Ted's like, yes. And I really like Ted doing this. Now, of course, everybody's pissed off, right? The people in the bar are starting to chant, you don't know what you're doing. We're getting all that stuff. Let's rewind real quick to Sam, as I really like this part too. Sam's down. He's a little nervous that everyone's freaking out, so he just stays down. He's not actually hurt anymore. Roy comes over and says, take it slow. You're going to limp a bit, and then you're going to signal to the coach that you can continue. They're going to love it. And he does that, but I love how much Ted buys it, too. Like, Sam starts limping, and Ted's like, what? Is he okay? Like, is he okay? And then he does the thumbs up, and Ted's like, all right, yeah, he's okay.
No, that's a good one. I love that one. And then right after that's when he goes up to the press box, right, to ask Rebecca if he can take Jamie off.
Yeah.
They're like, what is he doing? What is Ted Lasso doing? Like, he's up in the stands. He goes up to
Good
the manager's
cardio
box.
from Ted as he goes up all those stairs.
Right. He goes up, sticks his head over and goes, can I take Jamie out? And Rebecca goes, maniacally, like, you can tell she's like, oh, perfect, this is going to plan, because Ted's going to take off the one person that could bring us back into this game. And she goes, yeah, Ted, it's your club. I don't know why you're asking. Don't ask me. And you would never see that ever. No, like, that would never be a thing. But Ted made sure it was a thing. And then he says hi to Henry, and he's like, yeah, I'm gonna go take off Jamie Tart.
It's Chris Powell, by the way. I had to look it up. It's Chris Powell who is the commentator. Yeah, so he takes him out right before half. And this is a real thing in soccer, by the way. The pre-halftime sub, that is a statement to the player you're taking out. It's, we can't even wait another couple minutes. You're doing so bad. We're taking you out right now. You're going to have to go think about it. But in Jamie's mindset, he's not playing bad. He scored a brace. That's 2 goals. He is the only reason the team is in it right now. But Ted knows this is kind of the moment that's going to bring the whole team together, right? To show them it's not about what's a very famous saying. It's not about the name on the back of the jersey. It's the name on the front, right? It's Richmond. It's not Jamie Tart. So he pulls him off. Jamie leaves, does not stay. Jamie's gone. They go in. Ted makes a halftime speech about, the first time he saw tan lines of his, teacher when she's bending over. But, talking about how things are changing. The team is broken. We have to fix it. We can't continue how we are. Beard's going to run through the rest of the changes with you, but I need you to pay attention here when I say it, right? And he goes and slaps the believe sign, and the team seems bought in, right? The team seems bought in, so much so that even Isaac McAdoo, gives a spot for Nate to sit down on the bench when everybody's coming in. The team is starting to buy into Ted's methods. It's a ballsy move, as Roy's going to say at the end, to bring in the other attacker, Robbie Roberts. He's the one that got the Miss Peregrine book, by the way. He came back into this episode. And at the very end of the game, with a minute left in stoppage time, Sam Obisanya is going to score. Also in this halftime speech, before we get back to the goal, is Ted talking about letting her go, talking about his wife, but everybody's confused, and he says, "Lady football," and everybody's right back in, and Beard says, "Good save." But yeah, Sam takes the lead. Now they're all chanting wanker as a happy thing, which Ted says, kind of like in the 80s when bad meant good. And we also get another favorite of mine, the Coach Beard, Doc Brown impersonation from Back to the Future. If nobody knows, this is my favorite movie of all time. So when he's talking about the 80s and he says, "Who was the president then?" I forgot about this the second time I watched it. I remembered it this time. But I was like, yeah, that's an actual thing in Back to the Future. Doc, who the president is, Ronald Reagan. He's like the actor, but Brendan Hunt does a pretty good does a pretty good Doc Brown impersonation here.
He's got a bunch of them. He's got like that, and kind of like that Yosemite Sam, like out west, like yeehaw kind of stuff that he pulls out. I forget when that was when he pulled that out, but it was like, what? I was so confused. But no, yeah, Beard's fantastic. And the more they start to implement him, the better the show gets, obviously. But he's starting to get more time here. It is wild to me, like now that I've watched the show, like how slowly it has taken them to kind of integrate Beard, because he's there, but like, I don't want to ruin too much, but it's like he gets more. We'll just say that.
Yes, so that was that was great, but we have Henry asking, "What's a wanker?" And Ted says it's a guy who likes to be alone with his thoughts.
I love the
most generous way to say that.
It really is. It makes it sound like actually like a good thing, like a healthy thing.
Yeah, like the thinker. We then have the ending of the episode. Ted and his wife are talking. This is where he's telling her he's going to let her go, and at the same time we kind of have the beginning. So we have the end of a relationship. We also have the kind of beginning of a relationship with Roy and Keeley talking to each other in the parking lot before they go. But I really like this line from Ted, "If there was something I could do or say to make you happy with me, then I would do it." And he also says, "You don't have to keep trying anymore. I'm going to be okay." And Jason Sudeikis just knocks this out of the park. And so does Andrea Anders, who plays Michelle. But, but hey, continuity, the college girl, high school girl that plays soccer is the one playing with Henry to kind of distract them from this while they are, having their goodbye. But we get Ted sitting next to Beard with his beer. Say that 3 times fast. And we get the one guy who stopped him earlier, calling him wanker, saying good job today. So the opinions are starting to change, right? And even though they're still in a relegation battle, the vibe is starting to uplift a bit in Richmond.
Yeah, I love this ending scene. Just a couple things about it was just the whole instance where he's like, and this is the most mellowed out, sad Ted Lasso you probably ever see. Like, this is a really dark, but it's like, it's a weird, like, kind of like a freedom and kind of like this understanding, like the next chapter's happening, but like he's got the eyes that are all glossy and just like you can tell they're both upset. It's raining. They've got the black umbrellas. It gave me How I Met Your Mother vibes a lot. And I'll another scene that, or like another clip that does.
Yeah, no yellow umbrella here,
right,
though.
Right. But one thing, or a couple things, Ted says he never likes to quit anything in his life. He's never quit anything. And she says, "You're not quitting. You're letting me go. That's not quitting." And it's cool because it's like, it's an amicable, like, way of saying it just isn't working out. And she's not, going after him, attacking him for anything. The kid's going to, fly back and forth. He's going to go see Henry after the season. Like it's not like a really, toxic relationship where they just, but it's like she's allowing Ted to know, like, hey, we'll be all right. You'll be fine. That was cool. And the way that was acted. But the other thing too is there's a weird dynamic because Henry kept like kind of interjecting, and Ted has to be happy and dad, right? And then he goes into that moment with her and then happy again because he interjects again. And it's like this cool dynamic of he's got to put on a face for Henry and he's able to do so. But he's like, let me finish talking to your mom. The moment at the end, Jordan, with Ted and Beard reminds me of Ted and Marshall when Lily leaves Marshall and they go and sit on the step. Like for something about the scene and the way they're sitting
in the rain.
And Beard's just kind of like, wow. Like
holding the engagement ring.
Yep. Spoiler alert
for
everybody.
For How I Met Your Mother season 1.
But it gives me chills every time I think about it because I think, Jordan, out of every single show, this is up there with that moment. But that moment, I get goosebumps. It's probably like one of the worst moments ever in one of my TV shows, but one of the best because it's so impactful. The way that Ted has just now nailed down his dream girl, and then he goes home and Marshall's dream girl's gone, and it's wild. It's just the juxtaposition behind it, and I love that because it did feel a lot like How I Met Your Mother. A lot of this show does for some reason. I don't know why. I think it's like the deeper moments.
If only How I Met Your Mother had kept the quality up for
that's true
the whole series.
That's true,
especially the finale. So let's hope Ted Lasso nails that finale. By the way. All right, let's go to our man of the match. This is our favorite AFC Richmond player of the week, sort of like an MVP. I am going to give mine. You'd think Roy Kent. I'm going Sam Obisanya again here for the play acting that was able to endear him to the fans even more, right? Because people kind of were calling him a flop for a bit because he wasn't adapting well. He's starting to gain some more momentum among Richmond and the Richmond faithful, and I just think he's a joy. Sam Obisanya is my favorite Richmond player, so kind of biased, but yeah, I'm going to go with Sam this episode.
Yeah, this one was tough because it's like there's three really good performances. Jamie's performance is really good in this episode. It's just for the wrong reasons. I'm going to go Roy.
2 goals.
Right? Yeah, 2 goals too. Real MVP. No, I'm going to go Roy just because I feel like this episode, you're starting to see the walls come down. I don't know if you noticed this, but in the halftime part, I'd never noticed this until last night. As Ted's going on about the tan lines and stuff like that, you can see Roy and he's laughing. He's like,
he's smiling.
He's having a blast with the guys next to him too and listening to Ted. You can just start to see it coming. And when he says goodbye to Keeley, it's like he has this awkward moment of like, I don't really know how to be nice in this way. And he goes, goodbye. And then he walks off and she's kind of like, goodbye, Roy. And she's so bubbly and he is so not. So it's a nice episode for Roy. And I always enjoy when he goes after Jamie just because Jamie deserves it in these first couple of episodes here.
All right. Our Richmond Executive Employee of the Week. I have to go with Ted Lasso here. I'm going to give it to Ted for the halftime substitution, for finally getting a lot of these people on board here while his marriage is falling apart. Talk about a dedicated coach. I'm going to go with Ted Lasso.
Yeah, I'm going to go with Higgins on this one. I really enjoyed Higgins' performance.
I approve.
Yeah, I usually don't go Higgins, but I'm going to go Higgins. This is my first time, but I just love that he's finally starting to ingrain himself into the locker room. He's getting involved in being, I think, a little bit more outspoken with Rebecca. You're starting to see Higgins get a little bit more confidence, and he's really just become the voice of he and Nate together, because you always forget how quiet Nate is in these first handful of episodes. So, yeah, I'm going to Higgins. I just love every aspect of it.
I'm always down for Higgins. So here's what we're going to do too. This isn't just fun. I'm going to calculate at the end of season 1 who has the most employee of the week and who has the most man of the match. And we will be calling them the season man of the match, and the player of the year, employee of the year is what we'll do when we get to the end of season 1, which is halfway through. We're halfway through season 1 at this point now, Logan.
It's insane. You know what was scary? I pulled up the IMDb. I always pull up IMDb when we're doing these, and I had like I googled IMDb Ted Lasso, and right at the top it says Ted Lasso season 2, and my heart dropped because I was like, wait, what? Because I'm like thinking, I don't know why, that they've only done one season and it was like a mid-show break, and I'm going, oh my gosh, what just happened? And I'm like, oh, that's right, season 3 is the one I'm looking for. I had a moment, I really did.
Well, yeah. Season 1 and 2 combined is 22 episodes.
Yeah.
That is a standard run-of-the-mill. Well, back in our day, season of a show.
Right. Yeah. Now it is 10
changed
now.
Drastically.
Right. 10 to 12 is the norm now, which is so strange.
And then even on broadcast TV, a lot of shows have changed to 13 episodes. Some of the shows that are coming back mid-season. So yeah, it's absolutely crazy. It sucks a little bit because I missed the day of being able to find a show that I hadn't seen before and being like, oh, there's 9 seasons of this for me to binge. Those days are gone. It's like, oh, there's 9 seasons for me to binge. Each one only has 6 episodes. So it's a little tougher.
Yeah, there's a show I've never gotten through and I love, and I know you love it because I've seen your sharing of your posts lately. Is Frasier. I love Frasier, and I've never gotten all the way through it, and I'm kind of glad I haven't because I'm not gonna lie, I've kind of put it off because I enjoy it so much that I have put it off because every time I get to 4th season, 5th season, I'm like, I'm getting close to the end, I don't want to get that far, and then I forget it. And I can go back and watch it again. So it's kind of like that weird show I've just never finished, but I love. I know I do. So
I have to finish Cheers too. I mean, those are the type of shows that you're like, 11 seasons for Cheers and Frasier.
Yeah.
There's 22 seasons of Frasier out there. Actually, well, he doesn't come in season 1 of Cheers, but yeah, there's a whole bunch. And plus they're doing the reboot of Frasier, which is a continuation.
Kelsey's going to be in that, right?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
He's the only character continuing. But so kind of like how Cheers was in Boston and then Seattle was Frasier and a whole new cast. This is going to be him going back to Boston with a whole new cast again. So
do you think I kind of going on to that, and back to this show is and I've heard this on Twitter, you're not the first person you were the first person I ever heard say it. And then now it's starting to pick up steam is because they haven't really announced this as the final season, it's not in their ad. It's not Jason and them said it would be nice to do 3 seasons, but they never have come out to confirm that this would be the last. So I don't think it is. It would be really cool to see him come to MLS now that they've kind of got that deal with Apple. People have mentioned it a ton that those two could head back to MLS. He could come back over here and have that kind of taking the English game back over the American game and going, what the hell's wrong with this league? What's going on? So I was like,
well,
I would die.
What I read is Brett Goldstein said that they wrote season 3 as an end. But I'm guessing they could still probably continue if they really wanted to. But
that'd be so exciting if they just...
Yeah, it is weird they have not announced it. But
yeah.
Maybe they'll announce it with the trailer, this is the final season.
Are we putting
or
money
maybe they'll leave it open. They'll leave it open.
Are we putting money on the fact that the trailer will drop during the MLS first game? I think it's the Galaxy.
So. 24 days. Yeah.
It's at the Rose Bowl.
24 days from when we were recording. If you're listening to this, it may have already happened. I forget how far out I have these scheduled. We're kind of far ahead here. I think it'd be this week if I have it structured right.
No, I think you're right. I think it's
I have
this
them
week that would be
scheduled through the 18th. No, I have them scheduled through the 15th. So yes, it would be the week that this episode is talking about. I think would be the week of MLS starting on the 25th, and maybe there's a trailer during that day. I don't know. Maybe by now you already seen it. Maybe by now it's already happened. I don't know. Maybe there's a release date out there. I don't really know. We'll find out. But yeah. If you want to give us any sort of Ted Lasso feedback, email us tedlassorewatch@gmail.com. Hit us up on Twitter at @believe_cast. Or you can also hit us up on our Stateside Soccer Show, Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, and email, which is stateside show. @gmail.com for the email. Stateside Show for all the others. Thank you all for jumping on and listening to us talk. Next week, we are talking episode 6, which is called Two Aces. And we get an introduction to a new player on Richmond who you all might very much love. But we'll save that for next time. Thank you all for listening. Catch you next time.